Welcome friends, let's add a nice divide method to our program. So take the multiply button here and then control C and then control V. All right, bring that in here. Access its properties as usual on the right side in the properties panel. Let's scroll up here, find the name property. We're going to change that to btn divide. And we're going to create a powerful divide method that can divide together an arbitrary number of inputs, not just two. And then scroll down and let's see, where are we? That's already changed, good. So then just find the text property and change that so it says divide. In other words, if I input 2, 4, 8, that means 2 divided by 4 divided further by 8. We should be able to do that. Or we can do the basic 2 divided by 4 to get a half. Or we should be able to divide 10 numbers together, whatever. So click on the divide button, and this is how we are going to proceed here. Now remember, we have our process input method. This method returns a list of doubles. So one thing that you can do when you have a list of doubles is you can make an array out of it. You're going to make use of that as follows. Inside btn divide underscore click, we'll say var entries equals process input, and then a period, and then to array. So you can make an array out of this. This is allowed because you see, here it says it's a list of doubles, right? So process input runs, it returns a list of doubles, and then the toArray method is called on that returned object. So it can be converted to an array. Okay, punch down the line. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, we'll get to the next stage now. So once you have your entries produced, extracted into an array, then what you want to do is take the first entry in the array. So for example, we'll say double and then quotient equals entries at 0. So think about the division we're going to be doing. For example, like if I say 2, 4, 8, what this will mean is the following in sequence: 2 divided by 4 and then further divided by 8. It's going to mean that. If you have only, for example, 2 and 4, that's straightforward. That's just the standard 2 divided by 4, you see? So keep that in mind. That's why I'm extracting the first value, because we're going to begin with that. That's why I have entries at 0 here. What you do is you divide by the next entry, right? So like if the 2 were the entry at 0, then the 4 would be the entry at 1, and so on, okay? So we're going to say the following: for int I is equal to 1. Why would I begin with 1 at 0? Because the entry at 0 is how you initialize the quotient, so that means the next entry would be at index 1. So for int I equals 1, and then after that I would be less than entries that length, like this. It's the length property of arrays. And then the usual I plus plus as follows. So this beginning at 1 basically will iterate through all the entries after the first one. So you can divide. So now we also do not divide by 0, so we got to skip past anything that contains a 0 as an entry. So we'll say if entries at I, like this, does not equal to 0, 0, quotient slash equals, and then entries at I, and then terminate with a semicolon. So what is it I've just written? Let me say 8, 4, 2. What do I mean by that? I mean 8 divided by 4 further divided by 2. That would be like 8 divided by 4, which is 2, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's what I mean. That's why you need code like this here. That takes care of it. And then lastly, we're going to do lbl output dot text plus equals to accumulate, dollar symbol, a string interpolation, double quotes, and a quotient equals, and then here just type the quotient variable, okay, and then slash n to output on individual lines, terminate with a semicolon. So let's run this, debug, start with that debugging, control F5, let it get built and load into memory, as usual. Let's test this out. So you're going to do 8, 4, and 2. What this means is 8 divided by 4, which is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And that's sequence, divide. We get a quotient of 1, that's correct. If you want to operate on only 2 values, no problem. 8 divided by 4 is 2, right? On the other hand, if you do 4 divided by 8, so 4, 8, it gives you a 0.5. That's correct. Make it, for example, negative 1 and then comma 2. That means negative 1 divided by 2, which is a negative 0.5. That's correct. Repeatedly do it with signs. So negative 1 divided by a negative 2, and then divided at the end by another negative 2. Divide. Is this correct? Well, negative 1 divided by negative 2 is positive a half. Positive 0.5 divided by negative 2 is a negative 0.25. That's correct. You can check it. It works out. And then further, let's do a, for example, 10, and then you're going to divide, for example, by 5. and then you're going to divide by 2. So 10 divided by 5 would be a 2. 2 divided by 2 would be a 1. That's correct. You see quotient of 1. Now also input some junk in here like this. So in some positions, input some junk. Okay, and then let's also do another 2. The divide in this case, is that correct, of 0.5? Well, 10 divided by 5 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. These are skipped, and then 1 divided by 2 is 0.5 is correct. All the junk gets skipped. So it's supposed to be. And lastly, if you initialize with a value of 0, it doesn't really matter what you put there because 0 divided by 2 is 0. 0 divided by 5 is 2 again. That's 0. 0 divided by 36 is still 0. On the bottom, you end up with 0. That's the way it's supposed to be. Terminate. This is the code. Please leave a like and subscribe if you like C# videos at this level.